my phrase was leap and the net will appear. And it has been a continuation of that, truly, where I think it's really important to think about just taking forward action, and imperfect action, I think, is the phrase I hear a lot.
Imperfect action. And welcome to another episode of Keeping It a Bean. Keeping It a Bean is a podcast that brings together conversation and commentary all over a cup of coffee, or in tonight's case, as per usual, some tea. It's too late at night to be drinking no coffee. But I realized some people be having it with their dinner, and I said, it's different. I said, coffee's for the morning and the morning only, unless you're having one of them days. However, if you're new here, my name is Marquise Davon Keese. Don't ever call me Mark in your life, because some of y'all try it. And I've kind of been tired. It happened this past weekend. And I said, why would you call me that? I said, you actually hate me? This is ghetto. I don't like it. I was
Mark?
sick.
Wait, what?
Do I even give Mark energy?
No.
That's what I was saying. I said, don't call me Mark. I was so grossed out. However, if you're returning, hello to niggas and niggas only. You already know what the vibes are. What is up? If you're looking at these two very lovely faces here on this camera, that means you're watching on YouTube. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe button right now. Thank you. However, if we are your Monday morning drive, that means you are listening to us on audio. And honestly, shout out to the audio group, because y'all really be cooking right there on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Please make sure you hit that rate and review button. Don't be a hater. Leave me 5 stars if you like what we're talking about. Because someone tried to give me a 4-star, and I said, why is my rating 4.8?
Just do 5.
I said, had me irritated. So don't do that. So leave me 5 stars. Thank you. But also, when you do that, that's how you also help out podcasters as well. We show up on the algorithm, but other podcasts that you may listen to, it can curate us to be in a similar playlist for other people that may be similar types of podcasters, and podcast listeners could also show up on their stuff too. So please support us. However, those are the non-monetary ways you can support us. If you really want to support me monetarily, go buy my coffee, support a black business. If we're not going to Target, support me. Thanks. So you can buy Leroy's coffee, which is a Guatemalan blend. So if you want to experience luxury coffee by way of a black-owned business, feel free to also hit the link in the description box below. So this way you can support this black-owned coffee here. Every single time you buy a set of my coffee, you also donate at least $1 to an HBCU scholarship fund. So please make sure that you are also doing your part. Thank you. Other than that, we're going to get started with this show. Y'all, I'm so hyped. Because you're one of the people where I just be like, I want to be able to ask, but I was like nervous. And I was like, but I want to. And so I'm going to do it. And so honestly and truly, like, thank you, one, for coming on to the show. Y'all, if you've been to Spill the Beans, then you may have seen this lovely face already. If you're in Philly and beyond, honestly, you probably know this face already as is. But this is an event curator, an experience curator more than anything, a community organizer, somebody who knows how to bring people together, but also just an overall great person, a friend of mine, and you've curated some of my favorite events in the city. So you are also part of my joy in this space too. So I just wanted to, one, give you your flowers and thank you for being part of like really pivotal experiences here in Philly for me. So
thank you. My heart, stop. Yes. My heart is really warm.
Oh, y'all, it's Imani B. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, no, honestly and truly, and I mean everything that I said too. Like, you have curated some of the dopest spaces, and I'm excited for us to get into those parts of the interview and who you are. But before we even get there, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you?
For sure. Imani B.
Yep.
I am a community builder and dot connector, and that usually comes at the intersection of experiential marketing, event production, and creative strategy development. And that can range from anything from a concert to a dinner party to a volunteer event. I don't really have like one singular type. It's always about really bridging that feeling of belonging, whether it be community oriented or if it's for a global champion. Like, I really enjoy those moments to create community.
Yeah, and it's very much so evident in the work that you do and the framework that you use. And I was so hyped to be able to just witness the workshop that you were able to put on. And I said, hold on now. I know a little something. We out here. But honestly and truly, like, welcome to the space. And the conversation for today is really just able to explore, one, this space that you are becoming a very explicit thought leader in, but you also got niggas reading again too.
I literally reflected on that. I was like, oh wait, like even though I created that, I was like, people actually were engaging in content where they had to sit and be like, oh, I see what you did there. And like, they actually engaged in explanation.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, wait, that's different.
Yeah.
That's different.
Oh, and I'm excited to get into that because you were putting some dots together. And for me, I got to just geek out because one thing about, I love studying people's rollouts. And for you to be able to do that, I said, oh, there's so much I am ready to just like pick your brain, but also see the shift in spaces where you're not, it's not even like a pivot necessarily, but you're expanding the world and creating yourself out to be a thought leader. So we're really going to get into that. Awesome. But before we get there, we do a fun little icebreaker. Okay. And so this is the Keeping It a Bean segment, Keeping It 100. This is your hot take about anything, whether personal, political, pop culture, humorous, whatever you feel like you need to get off your spirit. Okay. It's your time.
Okay.
What would you like to keep it a bean about today?
My Keep It a Bean moment is focused around events.
Period.
Surprise, surprise. And that is, events are truly content, and storytelling is curation. Yeah. So when it comes to creating those spaces, if you're not doing it with intention, the same intention you would do a full rollout for a campaign, you're going to be left behind because we are moving into such a in-person space, back to like third spaces. Yeah. People want that more and more, and outside of just the broad idea of events and ways to engage, wellness focus is really important and on the rise, especially with conversations around, sober curious folks or a lot of run clubs. There is this shift that people need to be prepared for. How to create experiences, how to layer storytelling, be intentional, and make sure it's something that people can walk away with and kind of carry that story with them as well.
Yeah. Ooh, that was good.
Thank you. I thought about that.
Yeah, because you ate that. Okay, I appreciate you. But then there's also a term that I actually haven't heard before. You said sober curious spaces. So can you explain that to the audience?
So folks that are, thinking like for no other reason, from my understanding, no other reason, just trying to experience life differently. Because I think there is a pressure to drink when you go out. And there are a lot of folks that are looking at different alternatives. So even adaptogens, like the mushroom variant, they are putting those in one of my favorite drinks. And it's called a social tonic, but it's not alcohol. Oh. It gives you like a little buzz, but it's just a different experience, and you don't have a hangover the next day, which is amazing. But sober curious folks are those just looking to explore wellness outside of drinking.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Not truly, and honestly, and that layers on because the episode we had last week with Tay, she was just like, you don't need to drink in order to go out and have fun. Yeah. And so I was just like, there's a beautiful progression on what just happened. But thank you for that term because that was something new for me. But yes, there needs to be more spaces where folks do not feel pressured to drink and just be able to exist with each other. And also find like those entry points, whether that's the run club or maybe a book club type situation.
Something that might be even more sustainable. And just to build on that is I remember writing this Threads post about, would you be friends with your friends if you didn't drink? Like, would you still have that connection with them? Because a lot of times I think we're friends with folks or connected with certain communities just because of proximity. Yeah. If we go out a lot, we are friends. But, like, outside of that experience, do I want to spend one-on-one time with you?
Right.
Like, would I want to sit and read a book together or something like that? It's important to really think about how your friendships are pouring into you and if they exist outside of those spaces that might alter your perception.
She took my hot take.
Ooh.
No. I think it's actually a perfect segue. Okay. Have more informal and boring time with your friends.
Yes.
If I'm gonna keep it a bean, something I learned from one of my really good friends is that we noticed we always got together when it was an event or something important. But then we realized a few weeks ago we went axe throwing and we said,
we haven't done this.
We haven't done quite literally. We were like, we have been really good friends and for so long, for the last few years, but we looked and we were just like, you like to go bowling? I'll cook you in bowling. But we just realized like we just haven't had like
that time,
regular bro time where it's not something significant surrounding the event. We were just like, oh, let's actually just like do things that can be like memories, and just realizing like those pieces are just as important now of just being like, hey, y'all, we can just like hang out. Yeah. We don't have to go out anywhere. Or if we do go out, we don't have to do anything that feels like heavy and overly meaningful all the time. Yeah. Nah, let's go out and bro out.
Let's chill. Let's just chill. That's real.
Yeah. So I had realized I was just like, recently of just like, oh, I want more like informal time. Like there's a group of friends I know, like no matter when we get together, we can just chill out. We can go out, but we just want to be in each other's company and just like goof off together. And so I had realized, I was like, oh, that's the relationship building piece that's important to friendship. So not everything has to be a moment.
Curate it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think that's been interesting, especially just living in the time of where social media is now a day in my life, and everything has to be aesthetically pleasing, and things have to, no, leave time for the nonsense, the boring stuff that's not always like curated. And so, ooh, yeah, I like that.
It's a balance there for sure.
Yeah. That's the Keeping It a Beat segment, though. Thank you for that.
Welcome.
And we're going to take a real quick break, and then we're going to get back, and we are going to steep into the conversation.
Ooh, that was cute. I like what you did there. Thank you. I like what you did there.
The girls really be getting it, y'all. And so now we're back, and I'm so excited to get into this conversation because we know you, well, at least I was introduced to you through different events that you were throwing here in the city, and just being in similar spaces and be like, who is that? I know her. But then also, one thing I'm really excited to talk to you about is like your ability to no longer just serve as one note in terms of who you are. I feel like you're inviting people to get to know you as the thought leader. People are getting to know you as the strategist, and you are owning that. And so I'm really curious around like that moment that you decided, like, I'm not just going to be an experiential person, but I want to be able to expand how y'all get to see how my brain works. Why'd you make that decision?
So funny enough, because I feel like we're referring to the Legacy Shift, the launch of that series. That was not something that was supposed to come out when it did. It was supposed to come out a month later. But yeah, it was just a lot of times in my life, I'll have gut feelings like do something, like there's something you feel called to do. And every time I followed it, it's been the most amazing experience. So need to trust my gut all the time.
Come on.
But it was really being able to just see the storytelling, you know, being Philly born and raised. I love like all things Philly. And so with the championship parade, Super Bowl parade, there was a moment where I was like, wait, Teddy Pendergrass, he's from Philly. And then like The Love Hurts, it feels so perfectly, City of Brotherly Love. And like I was just like running through, I was like, wow, this is so good. And seeing the parade in full that weekend, I was like, I have to like create something around this. And so I just stayed up and just started creating. I asked some really amazing friends who are in the advertising and marketing space to review, to give any builds that they might have. And didn't know that I actually launched it on Michael Jordan's birthday. That was not intentional.
Oh, you ate that.
When I tell you, like, it was so aligned, where it's like, oh, wait. And then to just see it, because I was actually only going to post it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And then I asked one of the friends who reviewed, I was like, hey, you're in social media management and strategy. Do you think that this has a space on Instagram or other platforms? And she said, yeah, like your Instagram is a balance of, you know, work and play. So it naturally fits. Posted viral across platforms.
Multiple.
And I was like, oh, wait, people like it. Okay. But it wasn't intentional that it started when it did. But honestly, I've had those inklings to share this side of me for a while now, because most people just know a segment of the work that I do, and some people are just like, what is it that you actually do? A lot of people don't actually know. God forbid I ask my parents, they're gonna be like, you know, the thing, you know, because I sent my mom an email the other day, and in my email signature it says experientialcurator.connector, and she was like, what is that thing that you do anyway? I was like, okay. Like, I haven't been doing it for almost a decade.
Don't know.
Like,
it's fine.
It's almost been a decade, but who knows? Whatever, it's fine. So yeah, that
it's almost been a decade. It's crazy.
So that has been something on my heart for a while. But it just felt like the right time. And with the launch of the Legacy Shift series, the goal is really to look at how legacy brands have reclaimed space in their audience's eyes or expanded their audience. And it's not specific to sports because a lot of people have been sending me sports-related things.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, it's because it was Philly, for real.
Okay.
But I love to think about how it can apply to consumer goods, events, and like a range of things. So it's going to be a range of things we touch on in the Legacy Shift.
Yeah, which I think is so dope. And I love, because like for me, I was geeking out because that's the kind of nerdy stuff like I love because I'm just like, I love when people are able to display their expertise because I don't think we live in a space all the time where people want to sit down with a fullness. And so something I've been researching recently has been like there has been a almost like a context but like a context shrinkage that's going on. So essentially
to make it more
a context collapse.
Okay.
And so a context collapse means like people are taking information where it's at. So like if Beyonce dropping Cowboy Carter, people are like, oh, it's just a country album. But they're not going to look at, look at the legacy. Let's see how the whiskey's attached to this. How's Levi's attached to this? How's
the story?
There's a story, right? And so people don't want the context anymore because people either lack cultural context or historical context to see like the fullness of a project. And so when you're asking me to digest a body of work in an era of streaming, I just want to know what the popular songs are. I actually don't want to sit with.
What's the summary?
What's the ChatGPT? Tell me what I'm supposed to be knowing.
Literally.
Quite literally. And so I had realized being able to sit down with that, I'm like, no, I love like 444 might be one of my favorite rollouts ever because on Tidal, they had footnotes. They had him deconstructing the album based on different themes, but it was all black men who got to engage with this album. So we got to see how people responded versus what the story is Jay-Z wanted to tell. And I think it was such a curated thing. So I kind of geek out whenever I see this kind of stuff because I'm like, no, Imani knows exactly what she's talking about. Like, here's the imagery that you were seeing. Here are the words that you're seeing. What love hurts.
Yeah,
right. Like
perfect for Philly. Like it was just so. It was very intentional the way that Jordan Brand and Nike did that rollout, and I was so impressed. And it was that moment when folks over at Jordan Brand repost your work.
I was gonna say, like, I saw that moment.
Wait, what? I actually, and I think in that, imposter syndrome is that thing that lingers in the background. Like, I was taken aback because I was like, oh, they even see the value in how I was able to explain this story. Yeah. So that was really affirming.
Yeah, and I think it's also affirming because you took time and care as well. And something that you also said in the middle of all of that is that you actually went to some people that you believe are trusted sources. And so what is that like? Because I'm just like, that's part of thought leadership is knowing I'm not going to have the answers to everything, but how can I curate this in a space where I can pull from multiple experts to not only validate, they peer reviewed your work, essentially.
Yes.
And so how is it for that? Because for some people, they realize they want all the credit, but you're also moving with your knowledge in a space of humility. So how was that moment for you?
Well, the folks that I did reach out to, for some context, we did a intensive boot camp in LA together. So we lived together, we learned together for 3 months.
Oh, wow.
And when I say intense, like, we spent a lot of time together. I'm usually like a solo character. There was a lot of group moments.
Yeah.
So we got really close in that way. But being able to tap onto a copywriter friend of mine, a social strategist friend, and then someone in the brand strategy side. Like, I knew that they all had great perspectives because I'm seeing it only from my lens. Yeah. And I'm really big on team collaboration when it does come to projects because I know that whatever I have in mind it might be great and dandy, but it only gets sharpened when you have other people who can refine it and hone it further. And I know I'm not the expert in all the things. Yeah. I know what I thought, what I pulled from it, and they respectively in their own categories were able to just give some really good insight of, maybe reduce copy here or use more punchy language there. Yeah. So just being able to reflect on what is your strong suit, and how are the people around you, like how can they hone you or sharpen you further?
Yeah, no, I love that, because there's an even give and take that's happening
Yeah.
in these moments. But I love that you are thinking within community as
Always.
well. I said also, like, because so many people are just like, I need to do this on my own and I need all the credit, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, nobody gets anywhere by themselves.
Yeah.
And so even in that moment, as I'm thinking around the ways in which you have built community, you're also very intentional around gathering people in different ways. Because some of my favorite things, I didn't even get to participate, but I love when you did the scavenger hunt. And I was sitting there, I was like through social media all day just being like, did they get it? Who got it? But you give people not even just an experience in person, but you allow us to be into that space too. And so can you tell us a little bit more? Like, I remember from Spill the Beans, you had explained like your family had been pivotal in like why you build community out the way that you do.
Yeah.
But how did your family impact the types of events that you're also throwing? Because you do make events that are very intentional, but oftentimes people are immediately like scale versus actually thinking around the experience of the people. And so like, what is like your signature, if you would say?
Ooh, lordy. Honestly, the signature would be, how am I incorporating the 5 senses? That's really important to me in everything.
Yes.
So gift giving, like that, big on, that's my love language for sure.
Come on.
But making sure I'm thinking about like all the different aspects, like how can I make this a sensory experience is important. But in that way, I would say my family, they have been big on community-centered events and programs. So when I do, wellness-related or volunteer programming, it's really based on that foundation that I was given. But the storytelling, I would say, really comes from my mother. I think in another life, she was like a griot or like, she's a storyteller for sure. And I think I just try to infuse the learnings from her, because I love history personally. And so if there's an event, I'll try to think like, is there any context that I can pull from something that has happened historically? Or is there like a deeper connection that I can make for the audience, and not say it explicitly, because I think it's more fun if you like happen upon
And be like,
it's like,
wait.
oh, I see what you did there.
Oh, I love a quick little
so
cultural
layering,
reference in anything. Yes.
Yeah,
like
I
if
layering.
you know, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So layering those moments, thinking of the senses, how people are experiencing holistically, and truly just making sure that folks feel like they belong is just always going to be important to me. Having been on the other side of that at points in my life, I always want to cultivate space for people to be like, oh wait, like I felt seen there. Like those people celebrated me, because everybody deserves that.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I could legit, I'm just saying, I'm just like, yes. Excuse me. But even in that too, like as you're curating community around, is there, like taking it back even further, is there a specific event that you're just like, they did that and it made you even want to refine your own?
Ooh.
Like when you give other people experiences?
I would say if we went back to Fam Bam, it would probably be this nonprofit that my mother had when we were younger called Kwanzaa in the Summertime. So it exposed the neighborhood kids to how to be stewards of their community. Everything from community cleanups to cultural heritage and celebration, to just learning and having connection with your elders. Like those were things that I grew up seeing a lot. And so for me, I basically took that blueprint and said, okay, this not only applies in this communal space, but also applies to brands and marketing and advertising as well. Like at the end of the day, community and storytelling is a part of the conversation. And that's what really sells. People don't buy products, they buy like the story.
No, that's so good. Cause I always run with the idea, like people join people don't join things. So like, what are you buying into? But I actually like the storytelling component as well, because now there's something I can latch on to a little bit more. I would tell people, like, a lot of people came initially to the original Spill the Beans because they were just like, oh, I had a lesson from my grandparent too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the connecting point was. Is just like, oh, I remember the lessons I got from my grandfather or my grandmother or whoever was the person that raised them. And so it was like super interesting, like even hear this piece of like, it went back to the fam bam situation.
Wait, was that a strategy then for
me,
you?
it was. So on the back end, there was a little intention behind it. Because for me, I was like, spill the beans brings together, keeping it a bean. Spill the beans is also another way to say like, hey, can you give me this information? But that's what it was. I was like, spill the beans on your expertise. So when you come into a space where people can gather, I said community, for me, the history of Black people in coffee shops and cafes have also been spaces of sharing knowledge, but also this is part of where our revolution and our Black radical thought came from. And so I was just like, oh, I want to bring people into the space. This feels like a coffee shop when we're in this space together. And so what does it mean to now center, yes, the product is the coffee, and I hope that you buy the coffee after that, but the experience around it is knowledge sharing, is community, Black people trying something out, but then also we have different vendors that can experience things. And then after you see the conversation, you leave with actionable items. So like that's
layers. I love the layers there. Strategy is there. It's on point. You're on point.
And so like for me, I'm always like really big on when events are happening, and I'm like the educator in me does backwards design. So what do I hope people leave with, and then what can I do to potentially achieve that? Now, whatever people leave with is what they're gonna do by the end.
Yeah.
But like, did they leave feeling like they learned something? Did they leave wanting to buy something? Did they leave feeling like they made a new friend? Those are some of my big things of just like, if you leave something that I'm doing, how do I?
Your call to action of sorts. Yeah.
So. In the mic, you nerd.
You're right. I'll be forgetting this mic right here. But when you're creating events, do you think of the person that you want to show up at these events first, or are you thinking more about the cultural references that you want to put in the event, and then is thinking of like, oh, what does this person look like that would get and appreciate this?
So going back to like a marketing, advertising background and context, it would be creating the ideal customer or attendee. So then you're kind of shaping it around their experience, because if you're shaping the experience first, it's hard to say like what they'll actually enjoy. Like you're just putting things together and seeing what sticks. But I would say the strategy comes in when you're actually intentional about, this is our target audience. This is what they like. This is how they shop. This is what they experience on a daily. And then you tie in those story elements too.
So what are some things that you'd like to gather about your target audience before you start getting the cultural references together and building the ambiance of the event? Did I use that word right?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, that was good.
That was great. The basic demographics, like age, location, like is this a person that is more bourgeoisie? Are they more chillax? Like just trying to really envision, if I had to introduce someone, like what aspects would be important to them, like what aspects of them would be important, and truly like what, almost a day in a life, like what do they experience on a day.
That's really sweet.
Yeah.
And so I want to.
It's strategic.
And it is, because you did okay. Let's talk about it. Sweet strategic. Because I feel that I said, so they're probably college educated. They're coffee enthusiasts, somewhat social justice oriented, Black.
Yep,
like,
yep.
He's exactly what this is. Yeah, I remember having to do that. I was just like, oh, this is so like granular. You gotta break them down.
It's like the character archetype almost, just breaking that down as a person.
That was a great question, though. Yeah, period. And so I want to take it out from just like the larger community and make it a little bit more insular to you. Like I also, when I see you as well, you also are around such a strong group of friends as well. And so I love that, because I feel like that is always foundational to how people get to experience you, but also the larger community gets to see like, here's a little bit of insight to Imani, but how has it been for you being able to cultivate those personal friendships as somebody who's out in nightlife, sometimes day life, all this stuff? How do you also manage to have time with your friends? Because I know oftentimes with event curators, people are everywhere all the time.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
So how do you have those times for you in those moments with you and your friends when you're curating things?
Great question.
Yeah.
let's revisit that. No,
Okay, right.
No,
Is it
I
actually?
would say definitely being intentional about when I do have time, being able to plan it out further. So, like right now, it is not the best time for me to plan anything from now to like end of April.
Yeah.
So I'll be transparent, like, hey, let's do something late in April or early May. And thankfully, I do have folks that understand like life is moving.
Okay,
It's,
so what you
it's
gotta do.
in a transitional phase. So that, but then also making space for gatherings that are for large groups.
Yeah.
So like even if it's not me necessarily like hosting an event, I will do restaurant week dinners where I'll gather 8 to 10 women, or let's do bowling or something like that. Just making sure there are those intentional spaces created. It does lend itself to be easier for me if it is a group setting, because it's like we checked in, we good. Because the one-on-ones can get a little like, I am grateful that I do have friends that understand the life, but sometimes the one-on-ones can get overwhelming, because it's like I've had 6 one-on-ones this week, and it's like, oh, okay, it's Tuesday.
Yeah, quite literally. It's funny you named that, because that's something I've been recently having to like renegotiate. It's just like there are a lot of people who are like, and I love them all.
Yeah.
But it's like I have 2 of my mentees who need to check in.
Yeah.
I have my mom who has her weekly, sometimes 2 times a week, FaceTimes in the morning. And I have other friends who are just like, I need just like one-on-one time just to like do this. And I'm just like, dog, right now, like
it's a boundary set almost.
Yeah, but it's not. And I get nervous sometimes, because I was like, oh, I think I'm realizing what I had realized. And shout out to my therapist, because you really be getting me together. She was like, yo, you're feeling anxiety because now you're not going to respond to anybody, because now you're like, oh, after too much time has passed, now am I being a bad friend? Do they think I think of them any different? Am I not being intentional enough? And I'm somebody who's like prides myself on showing up in friendships. But I had realized recently, like, I can't be the best texter in the world, because y'all understand, sometimes on Tuesdays I'm recording, Thursdays I'm volunteering, I'm at work, I deal with kids throughout the week. I said
that alone,
but also maintaining a semblance of a social life. So I'm not able to do as much. And these past couple of weeks, I was like, I went from LA to doing 3 other podcasts, doing 2 of my own type situation. I needed a break for the weekend. I said, on top of that, I'm working on other things. And so I had realized, she was just like, you put a lot of stock into your friendships, and so when you realize you have not shown up for somebody, you then continue to avoid, because you're just like, in your mind, you're gonna hear, oh, I haven't heard from you, and blah blah blah. And I was like, I don't even want to put myself in that space, because it's just gonna annoy me. And I get it, like, don't always center myself in those spaces,
but
okay.
however,
comma, so I had realized I'm still actively working out like what that boundary actually looks like, and just being able to name, like, I don't actually have the emotional capacity right now to engage in this conversation, and it doesn't mean I love you any less, but like, can this be a text message and not a phone call? Because normally, like, the people who want to call, they on the phone for an hour and a half, and I just be like, I don't
we chatting.
like so I've personally just been working that out. So I thank you for like also naming that too, because I said
this is a lot. And I also have reduced just timing, like what things look like. Like, it doesn't have to be dinner. We can get coffee.
Yes.
There's been a lot more coffee dates in this season, because I love to work out of cafes anyway, and we've run into each other there.
Okay.
But I'll try and do it that way. So, like, financially, like, also, I can't hang out with, like, where's this money coming from? Tell me, where's this money? We could do dinner, 3rd time this week?
Look, my boy said, I will cook, just come over. I said,
my guy, yep.
You speaking my language.
Yep. So, also thinking about that aspect, and I've been pretty transparent with friends, of like, this is not within my current focus in terms of what I want to spend. So, coffee or tea.
Love
Leroy
that.
specifically.
Okay, I see what you did there. Okay, period. Daniel's so pleased at this moment. No, and I think that sometimes that space is important to name, especially in the environments that we're in, is like either being in event and experiences, working with kids, but also just in the space of content creation too. Like, we are out, and part of our job is to be social. And so like that's part of cultivating community. And so I think it's always like a hard balance sometimes for people.
Yes.
No, I appreciate you being able to like zone in. And I think before we finish this conversation, what are ways that you currently are pouring into yourself?
Ooh. Ways that I'm pouring into myself. Trusting myself more. In 2024, my phrase was leap and the net will appear. And it has been a continuation of that, truly, where I think it's really important to think about just taking forward action. And imperfect action, I think, is the phrase I hear a lot.
Imperfect action. Love that.
If y'all in the zodiacs, I'm a Virgo moon, so I'm like,
you talking to a Virgo sun, Virgo rising right here.
Okay. The details. I'm
Very
like,
much so.
if it's not perfect, why are we doing it? Like, for real. But I've had to take a step back and say, like, it's not about the perfection. It's about, did you do it? Like, did you experience it? Did you learn from it? Because you either win or you learn.
Yeah.
And I don't see it as a lot. It's just an opportunity to expand on my knowledge base. So I would definitely say I'm still leaping and trusting that even if you don't have it all figured out, that the steps are aligned for me, that they're guided, and that my life evolves in the most amazing ways that I could never predict day by day.
I love this. This was such a great. Right. No, I said, can we just sit with that? Like, that was so nice. No, but I just want to say, like, thank you for joining us for this conversation. I'm so excited for my audience to hear this conversation. I say this every week, but I'm sorry. The women have been cooking this entire month. Like,
it's just what we do, for real.
Honestly, truly, quite literally, every time Kavan and I go back, we've just been like, yeah, we got to decompress with that in this car. We they said about this, da. And so, no, I want to say just like thank you so much for coming on to the space and sharing space with me. But before we get out of here, let people know where they can find you.
For sure. On Instagram, it is My Moments with 3 S's. Or if you're on the LinkedIn, it's Imani B. Or you could go to imanib.co, which is my website.
Energy. And so you already know this is another episode of Keeping It a Bean. We kept it a bean with Imani B today. Please make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to leave a rate and review and subscribe to this here podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you decide to listen to the show. And make sure whenever you see the clips, share that, John. Use the hashtag KIAB, and this way I can keep up the conversation with you as well. I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. Peace.